The local photographer behind a judge's order limiting courthouse protest is now awaiting his fate.
This afternoon, both sides rested their case. Police say he was trespassing on Jacksonville Aviation Authority property. Action News' Catherine Varnum learned why he believes this trial is setting a bad precedent.
This trial got a lot of attention today. It's just a simple misdemeanor trespassing charge, but both prosecutors tell me it's one of the most elaborate misdemeanor cases they've ever tried because of everyone involved. This is the video at the center of Michael Hoffman's case. It's video Hoffman posted on his YouTube page showing what led up to his arrest in August 2014 while heading to the Jacksonville Aviation Authority.
I have a constitutional right to be here. I'm not breaking any laws.
You're on private property. I've already told you that.
Yes, sir.
He's told you that you are trespassing.
But Hoffman didn't leave. Instead, he was arrested, charged with trespassing. He testified today before a jury about why he wouldn't leave.
Someone's got to watch the watchers. Someone's got to watch the watchers.
Hoffman says he was on public property, which experts testified to in court. Hoffman says he's part of a group called Photography is Not a Crime, or PINAC. They go into public buildings, recording video, trying to gain access.
Exercising my First Amendment right.
We introduced you to Hoffman last week. That's video from May when he stood outside the courthouse saying judges were corrupt. That prompted the chief judge to issue an order banning demonstrations that, quote, degrade or call into question the integrity of the court or any of its judges. But just this week, a new order was issued stepping back, saying demonstrations that disrupt or interfere with court business or JSO officers are banned. But that doesn't specifically ban speech that could claim judges are biased. Now, all eyes are on the outcome of this trial as jurors decide whether Hoffman should have been arrested for trespassing on public property. Prosecutors tell me the maximum penalty on this trespassing charge, up to 60 days. In jail, will of course continue to monitor the jury here. Reporting downtown, I'm Catherine Varnum, CBS 47, Action News Jax.
A local activist found guilty tonight of trespassing on airport property tells News 4 Jax if he could do it all over again, he would not. Just hours ago, Michael Hoffman was found guilty of the misdemeanor charge. Last August, he walked onto airport property with a protest sign. He says that he was not demonstrating, but was simply heading to the airport administration building to make a public records request. Airport police stopped him and told him multiple times to leave the property. After the verdict, when he spoke with us, Hoffman became emotional about the experience.
I've always swore I would do what I felt was right and stand up for this country. And now look what they've done. I had pure heart and pure intentions. And I'm now convicted of a crime, 46 years old. So I don't think I would. I've hurt my family too much.
Hoffman recorded the entire encounter with airport police last year on video leading up to his trial and a jury verdict tonight of guilty to misdemeanor trespassing. This is what an officer said to him.
Airport they do, if you want me to protest or hold signs like you're doing, you have to get the permission of the airport authority because you are on private property. Okay? So I'd like to hand that to you.
As it turns out, the officer's statement proved to be untrue. On the stand today, that officer testified he was wrong and acknowledged airport property is public property.
They admitted it was public property, and I've just now been convicted of a crime for holding a sign standing on public property.
Testifying in his own defense, Hoffman admitted to the jury that despite being given the opportunity by the officers, he refused to tell them where he was actually going at the time of the confrontation. He will be sentenced tomorrow. He could get up to a year in prison. He could have been sent to prison for a year, but instead a local activist convicted of trespassing during a protest at the airport will serve a year's probation. Michael Hoffman was sentenced this afternoon. Besides probation, he will have to pay a $500 fine and undergo a mental evaluation. Hoffman argued police violated his constitutional rights by arresting him. The jury decided he was trespassing. Channel 4's Jim Pickett was in the courtroom. He spoke with both Hoffman and the prosecution afterwards. He's joining us live from downtown. Jim?
You know, Tom, Hoffman said he had time to think since his conviction yesterday, and he was thinking about his future. He was thinking about what's next for him. He was thinking about a lot of things. During sentencing, the judge told Michael Hoffman there will be a number of things he won't be allowed to do. During his one-year probation, he can't go within a mile of the airport without permission, and he has to follow rules during any First Amendment protests that he might be involved with. Hoffman and his attorney say they will appeal this decision.
The question posed to me yesterday was, would I do it again? Well, I believe the more appropriate question is, was it worth it? To that question, I unequivocally say, no. However, let me make this clear. I would do it again for one simple reason. Right and just do not change because of the severity of the consequences.
Hoffman is angry with the system. He says the jury really had no choice given the information they had to work with.
I do not blame this jury for convicting me. This jury did the best job they could. But I blame the judge and the state's attorney for maliciously withholding information and with the malicious intent to exercise his disapproval of my actions. This judge did not follow the law. That needs to be made clear. And this judge will be held accountable for his actions.
So Hoffman is basically saying he has to think of his family for the future. You know, you heard him talking about the juror and that they really had no choice. Well, today I did have a chance to talk to one of the jurors in this case, and they were telling me this case felt very important to them, and there were a lot of issues to consider. Here's what he told me.
They have the right to do what they did. Arrested him, and they gave him multiple times. I believe it was over 6 times they gave him to exit the premises, and he declined to do that each time.
Coming up all new at 6 o'clock, we're going to hear more from that juror, what he says went on in that jury room, and what some legal experts have to think about this as well. We're live from the courthouse. Jim Pickett, Channel 4, the local station.
We are now hearing from one of the jurors who returned a guilty verdict against a local activist who was arrested for trespassing at the airport, even though it turned out he was on public property. This afternoon, Michael Hoffman was sentenced to a year of probation. He could have been given a year in prison. At one point in his trial yesterday, the jury was deadlocked, but ultimately returned the guilty verdict last night. The juror spoke with Channel 4's Jim Pickett, who's joining us now live from the courthouse downtown. Jim?
Anthony Keith Wards Jr. Now, he was one member of the 6-member jury where there were 5 men and 1 woman on there. This was his first time on a jury, but he agreed to talk to us about this verdict. Anthony Keith Wards Jr. says he thought Michael Hoffman was guilty from the start of deliberations.
It was kind of crazy in the beginning, but as we sat there and listened through all the evidence and everything, it made sense that he really was trespassing on their property.
He said there was one juror who was holding out at first, believing that this was a First Amendment case, but they convinced him it had only to deal with trespassing. During the court proceedings, Hoffman pointed out that he was walking down the road and was stopped by police who wanted to know what he was doing. He didn't tell them that he was going to get public records and testified that he believed he didn't have to. The jury believed he had to do that, so I asked Wards about that. Say you and I walking down this sidewalk right here, and an officer stops us and says, "Where are you going?" Do you think that you should have to tell them where you're going?
If they see us, if we're walking down
This sidewalk right here.
the sidewalk here, not really. We don't have to tell them where we're going, but if they're asking where we're going, if we have I don't see the reason why we wouldn't tell them where we're going.
I wouldn't want to tell them if I wasn't breaking the law, walking down, like you and I. Like if they come up to us right now and they go, "What are you doing?" Do you think you have to tell them what we're doing?
Me being afraid, I would. but you don't really have to.
We showed our attorney, Ed Burke, our interview with Wards.
I think his response there sums up exactly the point of division about this whole case. Most people would, even if they're just walking down the street and a police officer said, "Hi, where are you headed today?" I think most people would comply. My understanding is the law says you don't have to answer that question. In an area that's controlled, like the airport or some other government facility, even though it's public property, there is some ability of the government to say, "What are you doing here?" The question is how much.
And that's what Ward says. He says that there was a clear statement that even though it was public property, the airport could still control what went on.
They have a policy saying you can't protest on their property without signing those forms first. So clearly, if he would have got those forms signed first, officers shouldn't have stopped him.
Now, Hoffman does plan to appeal this case, so we're going to hear more debate on this in the future. Live from the courthouse, Jim Pickett, Channel 4, the local station.